Okay, welcome everybody to the Finance and Operations Committee meeting. It's May 5th. And today we're excited to move forward with our agenda. Do I have a motion for an approval of minutes from April 7th?
Move to approve the minutes from April 7th as written.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, ayes have it. All right, and then we've got a series of allocations. I don't know which one you guys want to.
Look, you can do the pleasure.
I'll get us started. Committee to consider allocation of funds from District 1 to defending the fatherless in the amount of $1,000.
Second.
Second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, ayes have it.
Committee to consider allocation of funds also from District 1 to positive action service dogs in the amount of $2,500.
Second.
Second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Committee to consider allocation of funds from District 1 to Riverview Fire Department in the amount of $1,500.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Committee to consider allocation of funds from District 1 to the York County Sheriff Department Safety Video in the amount of $2,700.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
So this is, I mean, I didn't know we'd be, well, we'll discuss that later. Committee to consider allocation of funds from District 1 to the York County Sheriff Department Project Lifesaver in the amount of $4,000.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Committee to consider allocation of funds from District 1 to the Flint Hill Fire Department in the amount of $1,500.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Committee to consider allocation of funds from District 1 to Isaiah 117 House in the amount of $1,300.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Committee to consider allocation of funds from District 7 to Greater Things Ministry in the amount of $3,000.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Was that the group that came at our last meeting? Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Committee to consider allocation of funds from District 7 to Church of Christ Basket of Blessings in the amount of $2,000.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Committee to consider allocation of funds from District 7 to Fort Mill History Museum in the amount of $5,000.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. All right. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, follow-up discussion regarding local vendor preference. And Kevin just walked out the door. There you go.
He's going to look for our procurement director.
Is he? Okay,
So
okay.
we'll give him 1 second.
I hope we're closer to moving forward, because I think this is such a good idea to
It is.
do some things a little different.
Mm-hmm. This is great. Exciting days when we're launching the Small Business Toolkit here soon.
Yes,
And then,
well, it was on LinkedIn today. Its press release came out today too. I mean, that's going on right now.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome.
All around.
And then we come in this, in my eyes, is a opportunity, again, in the mindset of small business. You know, this is really kind of driving the opportunities, right, for York County. So what we're doing here with launching the Small Business Toolkit, I think things are looking up for small businesses, brother, in York County. There you go. Living. All right, Kevin. Follow-up discussion regarding local vendor preference.
Okay.
Yeah.
All of y'all would have been emailed, I think it looked like you
Mhm.
handed out a copy of this. And inside, I'm gonna point to the main things, and we can drill down into it now. I think we won't have enough time to solve everything around this, but, sorry, here you go. You have the definition of what qualifies to be a vendor, that's outlined in here. Being in the county for at least 12 months, you gotta be current on your taxes, but there's some
Mhm.
specific criteria laid out in here as to what qualifies as a local vendor.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Okay.
everybody might look at that a little differently, so that would be one area that I would encourage y'all to sort of think about when you read this, and
Mm-hmm.
you come back with comments, you know, what about somebody's got this or that? I'll tell you, in my previous job, in order to meet this requirement, we'd oftentimes, places will let you rent an office and you'll have a phone number, and when that number's called, the receptionist will answer, you know, John
Mhm.
Smith Incorporated, how can I help you?
Right.
Even though you're not actually there.
Right.
That's why I like the aspect of actually paying property taxes there, because there's a lot of way to fake the local vendor preference.
Mm-hmm.
But we've tried to address that in here. Another area to think about is what exactly they get. Right now, if you look at the top sentence, and this is why I had to go down three tier, I was having trouble finding it again. If you're within 5% of the lowest non-local
Kevin, do
bid.
you have another copy for Tom?
I'm sorry, Tommy, I kept thinking that was what's in front of you. So if you look at supply vendors on the second page,
Second page?
that's where it says, with the supply vendors within 5% of the lowest bidder, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get down, same thing, 5% on the construction vendors. Now, I'll tell you, Tierra put this together sort of as a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
5% on a $100,000 job is a lot different than 5% on a $5 million job.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some numbers, honestly, my personal opinion is that those percentages probably need to be smaller in the big projects, because you're talking some real money.
Yeah.
That's,
Oh, yeah.
may or may not be appropriate, but
Mhm.
you can see we got the supply vendors, the service vendors, and the construction vendors.
Mm-hmm.
Look, then all of those right now are at 5%. I would tend to be inclined to recommend lowering that on the
Like a
construction.
scale,
On a scale,
Correct,
yeah.
to knock it down to
$100,000 or $200,000 and below, 200 and up, you know,
Yeah,
the higher it goes.
for
the smaller
lower
the percentage.
percentage, yeah.
And again, this has been driven by council. If y'all wanna think about what you think are those appropriate breakpoints, staff will provide comments, yeah, we think that's a good idea, or hey, you might be getting out of limb on there and something like that. But think of this as a framework, as a starting template, cause ultimately this is gonna be council's wishes, put to pen and paper and then voted on through means and ordinance, and it becomes law in the county.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why Tom and I talked before this meeting got started. I don't know if we wanna drill down into the weeds on this at this particular meeting. Y'all got this electronically late last week. Y'all can maybe digest this and come back with some specific changes you'd like to make, and then have something you can vote upon
Yeah.
and go to all of council.
I think so. If you guys are good with that, give us time to read through this. Do you guys have any questions for Kevin? No.
I think, we probably, I don't know if we need to nail down whatever the sliding scale needs to be. I think I would like to hear you guys' recommendation on it,
You
because.
want me to send y'all an email on a suggested
Yeah.
starting point?
Yeah, I would
Maybe
recommend
that's
that, yeah.
massage what you
Alright,
guys can
I'll
do.
do
I
that.
think that's-
Yeah.
Would it, if that scale worked, would it work on like, say, the per thousand?
I don't think it's gonna need to be that specific.
I mean, if you said like, repeat what you said there a little
Okay.
bit ago.
I'm gonna use construction as a category.
Okay, yeah,
Construction
that's
vendors,
something I
okay?
know about.
Those are larger, so on a construction project, be honest, I don't really think we need to start below $100,000 in a construction project.
Right,
okay?
right.
From 100,000
Mhm.
to $1 million, 5% you get opportunity match.
Mhm.
From $1 million to $5 million, maybe 3%.
Mhm.
From 5 million or on up, you
Mhm.
maybe get 1%.
Right.
You know, and when I think back to the building projects that we did in 2016 over here, those are competitively bid. We've got good competition,
Mhm.
and that's imperative in a capital market to make sure you're gonna have bidders bidding on stuff. I don't wanna have any of these guys, cause it takes a lot of time to put those proposals together. And if they think they can be, you know, cut out, the legs cut out from under them at the end, you're gonna have less competition. And that's not only good for the taxpayers.
Mhm.
So what I'll do, I'll go through and for each of these categories, I'll give a sort of started recommending place on those scales and breakdowns on that. And y'all can tweak that at the next meeting.
That's good.
You know what, I think would be just interesting on a FYI, or just to know, let's say, last fiscal year, how many projects we bidded out that was here, for like over 10
Size
million?
project.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I think
Mhm.
in a couple meetings ago, you might not have been on council, this was given out, Tierra gave that information, I think, before you got on this committee.
Okay.
So I'll try to go back and rehash that, that was stuff that I think y'all got in November.
Mhm.
I'll try to get that again, the information she originally gave, I can get that to you, Bump, as well, to make sure you got the same stuff.
So, yeah, I've got two questions. Anything else, Bump? You're good? Okay, so when you look at this, and I know, you know, there was a survey that went out and you got feedback from, you know, different people from the, so were there things in here that were tweaked based on the fact of the surveys coming back,
No.
or was it what you expected to hear
No,
from?
not really, I'll be honest, I was
Okay.
surprised at the amount of vendors that were supportive of local preference.
Okay,
You know, the support was greater within York County for that than outside, but there was, y'all were giving the results of the last meeting, the support, there was support for what y'all are discussing right now.
Okay.
That really, the amount of support was a little surprising to me, but we had prepared this document, y'all had given some pretty clear guidance on what you wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
So the sampling really supported that,
Mm-hmm.
so it didn't change what we put together, it really supported it more than anything else.
Okay, good. So it was more, kind of, it supported the foundation of where you thought it
Yes.
was going. The other question I have, and again, I haven't read through this yet, but, bonding, when it comes to these larger projects, in the amount of funds required on a, say, a $200 million project, $100 million project, or 50 million, depending on what we'd end up with on something like this. On the larger ones, what is the baseline requirement for bonding?
That is, the bonding is laid out in ordinances right now, I couldn't tell you specifically,
Mhm.
but there's bonding requirements, and I know, I think up early on, when you were on council, there were some issues when the recession hit, we had some of our,
Mhm.
actually, local contractors walk away from some of the requirements as far as the paving of roads and subdivision. We
Right.
found out the bonding was not sufficient at that time.
Right.
Council since upped that amount, but the bonding requirements are gonna be consistent across the board, whether you're from Tennessee, Georgia, or South
Mhm.
Carolina,
That's not
or York County. That
Mhm.
shouldn't change.
None of that's changing with,
Correct,
with
'cause
this.
that's,
Okay.
that's there to protect the
Okay.
taxpayers ultimately.
All right. And time limits on these projects, I see it's a minimum of what, 12
Now, the 12 months is that you've been a vendor in the county.
vendor in the county? Okay. Length of project is not,
That's not factored in.
Not
That's
factored.
project
Okay.
by
I
project.
got you. Okay, cool. All right, so we'll go ahead and review this, come back with any changes that we'd want to make.
And I'm
on
gonna
this.
email out to the
Mhm.
committee, the original information Tierra sent out to the
Okay.
committee, since it's a different committee, I'll resend that out. And I'm also gonna send out, sort of by those 3 buckets, a recommended starting point for consideration on the breaks and percentages.
Cool, man.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate that. Finance update?
Everything's still going good. Yeah, we're, you know,
Well, that was a short one, I'll tell you what.
the county,
These are coming in.
That's it, they're
you know,
coming
and
in.
we'll talk about this, I
Right.
believe there might be a discussion about budget stuff around here, but, you know, as we
Mhm.
alluded to in the spring when we talked about the revenue of the county,
Mm-hmm,
we continue to see really strong growth in York County.
okay.
It has slowed a bit,
Mm-hmm,
but, you know, the growth that we had was really just not sustainable. We continue to be very blessed in this county that what we've got coming in. I think that's a strong credit to our schools we have. We have 2 of the top schools from the state in this county. We've got some great citizens in here, and we have a very business-friendly tax base in this county as well, but we
Mhm.
continue to do well. And I think, the citizens and of course county council should get a lot of credit for that.
mm-hmm,
What,
excellent.
can you get me some numbers on how many people are participating in the, prepayment of the property, that option that we have?
It's less than 100, I think it's 80 something. It's not very big.
I think we need to make sure that's being promoted, cause I think it's a good option for people to have who are not paying their property taxes through their mortgage company. I think a lot of senior people who own their
Mhm.
homes.
We've tried to go out there again before, we can certainly work with the, information office to try to get that information out there more. It's an interesting program, cause you got the same ones that use it every year,
Right,
you've got others that seem to come and go. And we get a lot that'll get in and like, hold on, wait, I'm giving you my money early, no thank you, and they get out and want their money back.
right.
But, we can certainly, work with Josh, the Public Information Office, to try to get something out about that.
Do you see, Kevin, do you see, from a homestead exemption perspective, where, you know, who's who's utilizing the homestead and who's not? Is that something, I know it's a state level program, but I'm just curious with the new people coming in here.
I can't think if I know anybody that's avoiding that.
Right,
They wanna take
yeah.
advantage of
Once
that.
people find out.
Once people find out, I'm just, yeah,
Yeah, and closing agents generally do a very good job explaining that to
Yeah.
them, and that's where you get most of our paperwork.
yeah.
We always have some that didn't see it, forgot about it, and
Mhm.
you do have like a 3-year window to make sure you capture that.
Yeah.
We've gone through that in the past.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm,
But it is the overwhelming majority for
Yeah.
everybody that does that. And we do have some, had a lady from California who was trying to claim a house in California and over here, and we wouldn't let her do it. There's oftentimes those that challenge it. Had a lady whose husband lived in France, tried to challenge it a while back too.
right,
But we follow the state law on that, and the state law is really honestly very generous to homeowners, but there is an onus on the homeowner
right.
to turn the paperwork and documenting it
Oh,
so we
yeah.
can vet it.
Yeah, Well, I tell you what, I think with, what we're also looking at from an automation perspective, I know that we're trying to make things more seamless, from an automation perspective online, where you can pay your bills and try to make it as easy as possible for people to come in. Do you see like any automation that's currently being looked at? I know we talked about AI initiatives around our online services and systems. Or anything that you guys can share that we're looking at from a bill, have these people pay their invoices online and making sure it's seamless to them?
It's
I think-
already a mess. I
Well,
wanna do
that's what-
that.
Well, I mean,
I'll tell you, that is a topic we meet with,
right,
in the treasurer's office where we collect our money. Once a year, we usually meet with Wells Fargo and Sturgis, who they process our online payments, and we'll talk about things out there. And there's nothing that's come out there that makes me think, I think this would be a good idea for the county. I wanna make sure we know what we're doing and we don't get ourselves burned with anything.
right.
We're very reasonable with right now how we take online payments. You can pay with a draft from your bank for nothing. You use the credit card, we don't make any money. You choose to use credit card, get your points, you pay the small percentage that goes along with it, we make money on that. I had a utility customer, very upset, she was behind on her bills, and she wanted the option to call in her number instead of typing it in. And you get into some credit card regulations about that, like you notice you go to places now, you touch your credit card, those businesses aren't accepting the credit card, taking it, they can't take it, then they take on another level of risk, and that'll drive their insurance rates they pay for those things.
Gotcha.
At the county, we looked at that, cause I inquired, I said, is that possible to let her do that? Well, we're gonna then need to step it up, the work we do in-house,
Right.
and that had been vetted by IT a few years back, and the case is still the same, it'd be about another full-time job. Keep track of the documentation we have to keep around that. So I think we are right where we need to be with online payments over the phone like that,
Okay.
where you type in the
Yeah.
credit card number.
Yeah,
But that is something that, annually when we meet with Wells Fargo to go over our banking services, we
Yeah.
can discuss that.
Well, there's so much out there about automation, in where but it's like you
If
said,
you
not
want to be a
everything's
guinea, we'll take your credit card number and try some of these new things.
I just, let me get one that's got $1 on
And
it.
it's not really on
Yeah.
the agenda for tonight for F&O, but I think digital services is something that we have to be thinking of, just like we need to think about in-person services. So that, to me means more of the website interaction, something like the small business toolkit. That's digital services, that's providing
Exactly.
information.
Exactly.
So what
Yeah.
else can we do to engage with our residents digitally? But also, we wanna make sure we prioritize in-person communication too with our team. So we don't wanna have AI chatbots engaging with our residents instead of our employees. Now, if a resident wants to do that, then we need to have, at some point, we're gonna have to learn what that means. But in terms of AI and automation, we'd rather learn from other local governments, not be cutting edge on that.
Yeah,
And then apply some of those lessons to our work.
exactly.
We're not gonna be afraid of it. But we're not
Exactly.
gonna Go be the leaders.
It's always who's the first one to upgrade, right? There you go, man. All right, we have nothing in executive session, matters for considering and consider stuff, nothing coming out of there, so I do need a motion for adjournment.
Tommy, that's your job.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, do I have a
Thank
second?
goodness.
All right, all in favor, say aye. I have it, yeah, buddy.